Alone and adrift in the bustling chaos of Delphi's marketplace, Ilara felt the weight of her failure press down on her. The vibrant colors of the merchants' stalls, the cacophony of bartering voices, and the exotic scents of spices and roasted meats were a stark contrast to the darkness she carried within. Where could she go? Lyra had sent her to the Pythia, and the Pythia would not listen. Driven by a desperate need to understand, Ilara found herself drawn to the edges of the marketplace, where soothsayers and street prophets peddled their interpretations of dreams and omens. She listened intently, hoping to hear some echo of her terrifying vision, some explanation for the chilling silence of the gods. Many spoke of unrest, of strange occurrences in distant lands, of a creeping unease that settled over the hearts of men. One old woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, clutched Ilara's hand and spoke of a shadow rising in the west, devouring the light. Another, a young man with wild eyes, prophesied the fall of the silver bow and the shattering of the golden lyre. Their words were fragmented and cryptic, but they painted a picture of a world teetering on the brink of chaos. As dusk began to settle, casting long shadows across the marketplace, Ilara noticed a small crowd gathered around a traveling storyteller. His voice, rich and resonant, wove tales of ancient heroes, vengeful gods, and the cyclical nature of fate. He spoke of times when the gods had turned their faces from the mortal realm, when darkness had threatened to consume the land, and of the brave souls who had dared to stand against the tide. Something in his words resonated deep within Ilara. It wasn't a prophecy or an explanation, but a spark of defiance, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and courage could still endure. As the storyteller finished his tale, the crowd dispersed, leaving Ilara standing alone in the twilight. The gods might be silent, but perhaps mortals did not have to be. Perhaps there was still a way to understand the shattered oracle, still a path to take, even without divine guidance. With a newfound resolve hardening her gaze, Ilara turned away from the deserted marketplace, her wandering footsteps now carrying a sense of purpose. She would seek answers in the mortal world, among the echoes of old stories and the whispers of those who dared to interpret the silence of the gods.
Her newfound resolve led her away from the spiritual heart of Delphi and towards the dwellings of its more worldly inhabitants. If the gods were silent, she would seek wisdom from mortals. She needed someone who understood the currents of the world, not through prophecy, but through experience. Her search led her to two very different men. The first was a Spartan soldier named Cassandros. He was a man built of iron and resolve, his face a mask of scars from countless battles. He was in Delphi not as a pilgrim, but as a guard for a visiting dignitary. Ilara approached him cautiously, asking not about the gods, but about the state of the world as he saw it. Cassandros scoffed. The world is as it always is, a battlefield. Men fight for land, for gold, for women, for pride. But lately, he admitted, his eyes narrowing, the fighting has a different edge, a desperation. Men see shadows where there are none, and hear whispers on the wind. Armies march on the word of mad prophets. There is a sickness in the hearts of men, a fear that makes them reckless. His words, though grim, confirmed her fears. The unease was not just in Delphi, it was spreading. But his perspective was that of a soldier, focused on the physical manifestations of the world's decay. Ilara needed a different kind of knowledge. Her inquiries then led her to an old Athenian scholar named Theron. He had retired to Delphi to spend his final years among its vast libraries. She found him in a dusty scroll room, surrounded by towering stacks of papyrus. Theron was a man whose battles had been fought with words and ideas. his mind a repository of history and philosophy. Ilara told him not of her vision, but of the stories she'd heard in the market, of the soldiers' fears, of the growing sense of dread. Theron listened patiently, his fingers steepled before him. "History does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes," he said, his voice dry as old parchment. "There have been ages of darkness before, times when the world seemed to lose its way. These periods are often preceded by a divine silence, as the poets call it. But the silence of the gods often forces mortals to find their own voice, to forge their own path." He looked at her, his gaze sharp and piercing. "You are not a simple pilgrim, are you, child? You carry a burden. The question is, what will you do with it?" Theron's words struck her more profoundly than the soldiers. Cassandros saw the symptoms of the sickness, but Theron understood the nature of the disease itself. He saw not just chaos, but a pattern, a cycle. Leaving the scholar's quiet library, Ilara felt a new clarity. The path forward was not to be found in a single place or with a single person. It was a mosaic, and she had just found 2 more pieces.
The conversations with Cassandros and Theron solidified a new path in Ilara's mind. Delphi, with its silent gods and fearful priests, had no more answers for her. The soldier had spoken of a sickness spreading among men, and the scholar had spoken of historical patterns. Both pointed away from the heavens and toward the world of mortals. Ilara recalled the fragmented prophecies from the marketplace, a shadow rising in the west, the fall of the silver bow. The west. What great city lay to the west of Delphi? Thebes, the city of Oedipus, of the 7 gates, a place with a long and often tragic history. It was a place where the will of the gods and the ambitions of men had clashed violently before. It felt like the right, if daunting, next step. She sought out the old scholar, Theron, one last time. When she told him of her intention to travel to Thebes, he did not try to dissuade her. Instead, he looked at her with a glimmer of something that might have been approval. Thebes, he mused, stroking his long white beard, a city of kings and curses, a place of great pride and even greater sorrow. If a shadow is indeed rising, Thebes would be fertile ground for it to take root. He turned and shuffled towards a large, intricately carved wooden chest. "If you are to go, you must not go unprepared." He rummaged inside and produced a heavy woolen cloak dyed a deep indigo, far superior to the simple one Lyra had given her. He also handed her a small but heavy purse of coins. "This will see you fed and sheltered, but more importantly," he added, pressing a rolled-up scroll tied with a leather cord into her hand, "this might see you informed." "What is it?" Ilara asked, her fingers tracing the smooth surface of the scroll. "It is a letter of introduction to a colleague of mine at the great library of Thebes, a man named Iokastos. He is the keeper of the city's histories, both the celebrated and the forgotten. If there are unusual patterns, whispers of an ancient darkness, he will have heard them. Tell him I sent you. Tell him you seek knowledge of the old rhymes." Gratitude swelled in Ilara's chest, a warmth that pushed back against the cold fear that had been her constant companion. She had come to Delphi seeking the voice of a god, but had found the kindness of men. Clad in her new cloak, with the scholar's letter safely tucked away, Ilara left Delphi behind. The road to Thebes stretched before her, a dusty, uncertain path winding through the rugged Greek landscape. She was no longer just a frightened acolyte fleeing a terrifying vision.
She was a seeker, a messenger, a carrier of a burden she was only just beginning to understand. The gods were silent, but Ilara was not, and she was on her way.